All right, welcome to the Fly Guys podcast. I'm with one of the flyest guys I know.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
DanTresOmi, my brother from another mother and father. And tonight we're kind of dealing with this topic that was presented to us by the curator, Tessa the Queen. And she was interested in us discussing what we get wrong about misogyny. And if I'm correct, you like the concept of this article, but you don't like the main character in the article, the person who was being interviewed.
Yeah, Kate, man, I don't, and I'm completely unfamiliar with her. It's just that she made some points in the article that I was kind of like, yeah. So.
All right. She made the point that the reason that we have President Trump is because of misogyny.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and I want to be, because I want to be, I want to use some working definitions of what sexism is and what misogyny is.
Oh, yeah, we got to go there. That's your area of expertise, man. You're Mr. Working Definition.
So sexism is like racism. It's structural, right? There's a, we got there. Okay.
What's up, Ed? My brother Ed in the building. How you doing, sir? And he'll get into it. All right, but sexism, I mean, you were saying that sexism...
It's structural, right? It's like racism. It's structural, right? There's policy, there's tax laws, there's, local laws, there's, then you have the informal system, right? How we interact with each other. So right. That's what sexism is. And she's saying that sexism and misogyny are two different things, which I mean, yes, she's right. They're two different things, but they're not mutually exclusive because... sexism holds up misogyny, right? Misogyny holds up sexism, right? You need misogyny to do that. It's kind of like, consider it like white mob violence against black people, right? That is individual groups of people attacking black people, but that kind of holds up the system of white supremacy. So misogyny does the same thing on several levels, and it holds up the patriarchy, right? Or sexism, the system. Right, so that's what she kind of says in this article, and that's how we should look at it. And again, misogyny is hatred and violence towards women, right? That's what misogyny is. So misogyny will be kind of like if I'm misogynistic to a woman, then that's like a white person having individual bigotry towards a black person or someone of Latinx descent or somebody that's of Asian descent, like that's having that individualized bigotry, or a group of white men being, showing bigotry to a particular individual. But then you have the structure, which is sexism and racism. But again, I like to call it, that's why a lot of people have problems with feminism, because of people like Kate Manne, who's a white feminist, right? She makes certain points that ignores racism, right? Because again, Dr. Bell Hooks calls it white capitalist patriarchal, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. And that's what that is. It's all part of the whole thing. Patriarchy holds up white supremacy.
That's interesting. And her point that the President Trump became our president because of sexism ignores some of the things that you brought up. But so I'm wondering, what are some of the other reasons people think that Donald Trump is the president? Hey, Ed, why is President Trump our president?
Because there are a lot of people there. I think Donald Trump ended up being president because there were too many folks that just could not process, not necessarily, well, first of all, they're still getting over the fact that a black man was president for 8 years. Mm-hmm. Then there were too many old white men that just could not, and white women that just could not process a woman being president. They couldn't process it. Fuck how qualified she was. That was notwithstanding, because she was eminently more qualified to do the job than him. But it didn't matter because he was the one that they selected. And guess what? Doesn't matter. She's got to win. He got to win. And he ended up ultimately being selected as the president, and that and Russian interfering. But not, you know what I'm saying? It was just, it's about the fact that they just couldn't handle handing over the reins to a woman.
And I think Kate made that similar point in her article, although she was saying that people didn't vote.
Yeah, and that's my thing. Like, and that's my whole thing with just like two things. The whole thing with the Trump presidency and the whole thing when we talk about, when we talk about feminism, the reason why a lot of people don't like feminism is because of white women like Kate Mann, who makes these kind of statements and forgets about racism. And that's why I said in the previous episode that my feminism is intersectional, right? I have different identities and they all intersect. And at the same time, I can't forget about racism. Racism also plays a factor in that. Americanism, where they're saying America is exceptional and everyone else on the outside is not. So that's how you have a lot of xenophobia. That's part of my identity. That's where it intersects. So really, quite honestly, Trump won because of white supremacy. That's just bottom line. Like I stated earlier, if you look at all the demographics of who voted for him, most white people voted for him. And that's really what that is. Is Trump a misogynist? Yes, he is. Is he sexist? Yes. Does he uphold sexism? Yes, he does. But he also upholds, white supremacy. He also upholds racism. He also upholds xenophobia. He also holds up, transphobia and homophobia and so on and so forth. So I think we could, again, he supports white capitalist patriarchy, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, as Dr. Bell Hooks said. And I think Kate Mann misses that. And again, that's why a lot of people don't fuck with feminism, because of white women like her.
So is that white privilege the reason why she doesn't see it?
Exactly, because white privilege. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Clearly, white privilege will blind you to a lot of shit.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And one of the things that I'm struggling with is male privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So will male privilege blind you to the other privileges or the other isms that are out there as well?
Yeah, it does. It does.
You got to think about it.
I even go so far as saying, people get mad at me when I say this, male hetero privilege also blinds me to a lot of things, a lot of isms that I see out there. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because you got to remember, this is age old. This is hundreds of years in the making. The patriarchal system as it is. I mean, come on, if nothing else, we've used religion as a tool to reinforce this for generations. Yep. Think about it.
All right.
I mean, honestly, if you think about it in the context, from a biblical context. So, who wrote the Bible?
I don't know if you want either one of us to answer that.
No, but men, he's right. Men wrote the Bible.
Men wrote the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Men wrote the Bible. Yeah.
Men wrote the Bible. Men also edited and rewrote the Bible.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, to think about it in terms of, but it's always been patriarchal. It's always been male dominated, because guess what? You've got to think, even with the revision of the Bible at the Council of Trent. Oh, I didn't want to go down this road today.
We're going.
You got to think about it. Even at the revision, where they decided what we were going to take out, what we were going to put in. When they put in heterosexist language, to think about why it was done. The Council of Trent was convened right after the decimation of Europe by the Black Plague. Okay, so there was a need to repopulate. You feel me? So in the need to repopulate, they knew that Christianity or organized religion was the one vehicle that you could use to affect masses of people. And so that's why it was done. And so in the King James Version, and you know how I feel about the King James Version of the Bible, because, it is the most sexist, racist version I've ever seen in my life. But that was written in when I tell you, we're talking about heterosexist, that language it didn't exist. A lot of the heterosexist language didn't exist before the revision.
Okay.
It didn't. There was no homophobic language in it. It was, and it's interesting to me that it was edited by a homosexual.
Right.
Because St. Augustine he's fact. Sorry, I hate that word. I hate the word, but see, he was a homosexual. Think about it. He was a homosexual, and it was named for King James.
Who was?
good and homosexual. So how ironic is that? But yet this is the same. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because my dogs are back here having, one is snoring and one is having a whole moment back here behind me. Go to that!
All right.
All right, sorry.
But your point is that men
have dominant. You know, we've used the Bible and religion. You know, it's the event. So we still use it today as a tool to suppress any group that we don't that we want to control.
So are we unwittingly following along with these constructs? And you're saying that these constructs were set up by people specifically to stop certain things.
Oh, absolutely. Well, initially the constructs were set up to repopulate. And they were set up to repopulate Europe. You think about it. And in as much, the constructs that they set up they were very countercultural to what was going on in Rome. If you think about Rome as a society versus the Roman Catholic Church, you know, when they talk about, you know, man shall not lie with man, blah, blah, blah. When they wrote the heterosexist language in, it was very counterintuitive to what was already going on in Rome. Hence the Roman bath.
Well, most cultures pre-Christianity were polytheist, and polytheist religions were usually open to the LGBT community. Right. They had women that were priests. You know, they had women that ran cult houses. So you're very right in that response. In that response to when they put that all together, that was like a backlash to get rid of all that stuff.
Exactly.
So for them to convert people, they had to say these are the things that you can't do anymore. And that's why Christianity was used as a tool of imperialism, really, around the world. So, right. and that's up till modern times.
Right.
And so when I look, for instance, the three of us, we were all raised to some degree with a heavy involvement in churches.
Yes.
And I think, Dan, you and I were both involved with churches that had a liberation theology. I'm not so sure about you, Ed. But so are you saying that those constructs that were developed thousands of years ago frame the way that we interact with the world, and those framings kind of unwittingly force us to institute and continue misogynistic activity?
I want to say real quick that yes, to answer your question, yes. But in modern times, what we do is a lot of us cling to these ideas, even though there's evidence to prove that they're wrong.
Right, because they're comfortable.
So unwittingly, maybe I'll say 50 years ago we did it unwittingly, right? But now with information now and all the stuff that we have access to, we're clinging to a lot of these ideas when the evidence is opposite of what we're supposed to be following.
Because the ideas are comfortable, and heaven forbid you actually have to let some of this stuff go and be informed.
Exactly. You're right. You're right. Very right.
What are some of the things that people are letting go of now?
Well, I know that I know a good example was a lot of people leaving the church. That's like, I don't know if that's good or bad. For a lot of us, it's good. For a lot of us, it's good. A lot of us are leaving the church. A lot of us are finding refuge in polytheistic religions. Right? Some of us are going back to the religions of our ancestors, pre-colonialism. So you see a resurgence in, the Yoruba tradition, Lukumi, the Legwa traditions. You see a lot of people going back to that. You see people going back to their native, like their native First Nation religions. People are moving back to that. I see a big resurgence in that. The last 20 years, I saw a lot of people returning to those ideas. Or some people who are just saying, I'm not part of any formal religion, and I'm spiritual, and it allows them to be open, particularly members of the LGBT community, women, they find safety in a lot of these spaces. So I think that's that's an advantage of letting go of some of these ideas. And then I'm finding more and more churches, and I'm an atheist, would say that, but I'm finding more and more churches because of my community work where they're open to members of the LGBT community, have women who are leaders in their congregation. Or women that are in charge of certain things that usually men were in charge of. So I'm seeing that happen a lot because of letting go of some of these ideas, some of these old, quote unquote old traditions.
You know, I was in church today, this afternoon, and the presiding minister was speaking about how people are reducing their activities with the church.
Mm-hmm.
And the church is truly struggling with that. And it's kind of interesting that I initially simply thought that the church was just not necessarily meeting the needs and interests and presenting, the religion, Christianity specifically, in a way that was capturing and engaging and important to the lives of its members. But you're simply saying that people are becoming more and more conscious of the construct and the damage, and then they're moving away.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I feel like there are a lot of people that really have to find where they belong in that context. Because for me, I mean, regardless of, I still remain a Christian, and I still go to church. Like I enjoy.
Hold on. Say that you're a what?
No, I'm a Christian.
But you use a term before that.
What did I just say?
Did you say romantic Christian?
No, so I remain a Christian.
You said yes.
Okay.
Despite the fact that
I was like, I didn't know about that. Where they do that at? Okay. Is that why they say I'm in love with Jesus? Okay.
Okay. But still, I think it's a matter of faith, and because I don't let anyone dictate what my relationship with God is, and I don't, and even right down to the book, because I will refute what's in the book. Because you know what? Because I feel like for me, if the breath of God does not breathe life into the pages or into the words that are coming from the book, then the book is pointless. You hear me, then it just really is a collection of stories that have been handled one too many times by men. I always refer folks, when it comes to the LGBT community, I always refer them back to the pre-Augustinian translations, or the editions prior to that. I was like, if you can show me where this homophobic or this misogynistic language exists in the original Orthodox Greek or Jew or Hebrew translations, then you know what? Then I'll kiss your ass and bark at the moon. But otherwise, I'm not doing it, because you can't tell me, and I told him, I said, and it's interesting about the homosexual language that they left in the Bible. And I refer them back to Jonathan and David, which is one of the best gay love stories I've ever heard. And it's right in the book. Read it. It's in the book. Look up Jonathan and David. It's in the book. Or Ruth and Naomi. My God, those are the best lesbian love vows I've ever heard. Are you kidding? Where you go, I will go. Where you lie, I will lie. Your people will be my people, and we shall be together forever. Oh, honey, that's good stuff.
Well, now, is church hurt? And I'm not going to refute that. I'm not sure how to respond to that. Maybe that's my hetero privilege. I don't know.
And then I always ask about, and even in that, when you talk about interpretation, so when you go to Leviticus and you talk about, this, I like, when you start talking about, when it talks about that whole man shall not lie with man, it is an abomination. But what you forget is, I need you to read the entire, don't cherry pick, read the entire chapter. There's a whole list of amoral, just terrible ass shit. You're not supposed to sleep with your incest. You're not supposed to sleep with pedophilia. It speaks to a whole bunch of shit that people will forgive readily.
Tattoos is one of those in Leviticus.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured this. So, and that's my thing. I'm like, I figure at this point, I'm going to hell anyway.
So, church hurt. Did you feel any levels of church? We use the term church hurt, and that's when a person has had a negative experience related to their church experience. And I've noticed that a lot of the people who are starting to look towards some of the indigenous belief systems and traditions and cultures, and those who are moving towards, like Danny, becoming atheists, or I can't think of the word before atheist. Like
agnostic.
Agnostic. Yeah. It's like you sort of okay. Yeah. So I've noticed that a lot of people who have been church hurt have moved towards those type of living experiences, and I'm wondering if the hurt that they experienced was because we were proclamating sexist, racist, homophobic constructs that were taught to us.
Absolutely. I feel like in a lot of situations, that is exactly what has happened. I just feel myself blessed and very fortunate that I grew up in a family and in a church family that embraced, that was really living the model of open doors, open hearts, and did not. And that, in fact, I think some of them were scared of my mama, so nobody said no stupid shit.
I was scared of your mom too. Okay.
I was just gonna say, if I could jump in, and I speak for somebody who's in one atheist organization, and then I'm also like in a free thinking, they call themselves free thinker organization of color online. From what I've gathered, two things: the people that make up those groups are either former lay leaders. Most of them are former lay leaders. They were like ministers, pastors, whatever, from different faiths, Christian faiths, and then the rest are they were actually not even, they're like myself. They didn't have a bad experience. They just studied the books a lot and came with the conclusion that it doesn't hold any water. What I've noticed, what I've experienced is that most people who suffer church hurt actually remain in the church. Just like most people in abusive relationships actually stay in those abusive relationships. So that's what I've experienced. I've made, in those organizations, I may have ran into maybe one or two people. And this one organization is nationwide. And then one group that I'm in, we go to a lot of regional conferences. And we meet people from all over the country and all over the world. And I'm going to say 9.9 out of 10 times, most of those people had pretty good church experiences. I know, like I said, I went to a church that taught liberation theology. So my experience was actually very good. Again, I have a heteronormative male privilege in that sense, but it's very rare that I meet people who, I've been church hurt, so now I'm an atheist, so now I'm agnostic.
I get that.
So I'm just gonna point that out, because I get a lot of people that ask me, well, what bad experience did you have in church that made you leave? And that's why I always start, when I tell people about my atheist experience, I always start with, I had a good church experience. And I had a very good church experience. And
I honestly, I appreciate that, because when you talk about church hurt, like growing up, I never experienced it. Again, like in struggling with my identity and who I was, I never had that church hurt. And, regardless of how I was sheltered, but, maybe because like folk weren't going to say anything to Shirley's son ever, because
right.
they knew better, because maybe that's it. But regardless, I've experienced more church hurt as an adult, and more recently, because, and I guess as a church boy, as it were, like I hold people to a different standard. And I'm just like, wait, that's not how we act. That's not how you're gonna do that. Like very recently, I'm on a sabbatical leave right now from a job at a Catholic church, because the priest and I didn't get along. And you got a priest and you got these the sister, the principal was a nun, and they were shitty. They were absolutely shitty, beyond the fact that they weren't running the school properly. And I was, me, I'm like, so if you want to improve your scores, if you want to improve the efficiency of your school, you need to do this, and this. And this will be for the betterment of the kids. And they're looking at me like my name is Sam Sausage Head. And then on top of that, you get to a point where the priest is fussing at me every week after mass. And we had, you know me, I'm not here for any of that.
No, you're Mr. Clapback, the original Clapback.
And so it came to that. I was like, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of, I done got I got my friends, I got my brother on like standby because you got one more time. And I was like, nigga, you got one more time and I'm gonna need bail money. I was like, you got one more time to be fussing at me and it's gonna be on and popping. But I was like, but how about this? I was like, wait, let's not do that. Because it was like, I'm like, I don't believe that you're fussing at me and you're raising your voice at me. This is not how. I was like, this is how we do in the church now? Oh, okay. You don't expect, you expect a certain level of behavior and you don't expect the church people to do you grimy.
I'll say thank godliness for sabbaticals.
And you better thank Rick, because I'm telling you, he had me set up. Rick set me up lovely. He was like, look, bro. Oh, I love, that's my number. I love him. Because guess what? Because he set me up years ago. He's like, he put me on the right pieces of paper. So he was like, look, so if this goes down, all you have to do is say this and you'll get out. Yeah, no, I told all my folks, I'm like, look, just come to this precinct, call Ricky, and he's gonna tell him that I'm off my meds and the dude hit a trigger and they're gonna let me go. You don't need no bail money, just come get me. They won't release me to me, but just
salute to Hampton University. So we deal with all this, but misogyny versus sexism, and so there is layers to this, and I really truly appreciate having DanTresOmi with us because he kind of breaks a lot of this down.
Oh, misogyny, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's right. So misogyny, sexism is, that's how we act and how we think and our constructs. We're like, okay, and so that's I view it as sexism is our slant or our perspective on how we deal. But then misogyny, you're right, misogyny becomes a whole nother thing where it's almost abusive and it's, and it's detrimental. And you actually set up systems in place where like, okay, so it's institutionalized sexism is what it is. Mm-hmm. It is, like when
does it still exist the way? Does it still exist? I mean, when you look at the schools, is misogyny still the rule of the day? When you look at the courts, is it still the rule of the day? Now, I know when we deal with some, governmental stuff, and we deal with some of the policies that deal with healthcare, you guys have taught me that it's still the rule of the day. But where is
education? Let me tell you, Title IX only goes so far. Title IX goes for athletics, but case in point. So I know you've seen the article, and I should have sent it to you, about the South African runner who has testosterone levels, and they want her to take now the IOC, who is so anti-doping, wants her to take drugs to suppress her naturally occurring hormone levels. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I'm like, it's not her fault. She's not transitioning. Yep. She's not, this is how she grew up. This is naturally occurring in her body. This is how she's made. And so for her to have to suppress that in order for her to be competitive, or because she's beating the hell out of she's beating the hell out of folks. Now, granted, they consider it doping. No, it's not doping. Now, just because them East German chicks had to do that stuff, and that's a whole other issue to me. That's a physiological issue, because you know what? There's some cultures where you have to do that, and then they came out looking like men. But what do you do with that? But yet, this
I ain't doing nothing with that.
I'm saying the IOC is male run. So what happens? What happens if? So they wouldn't ask Usain Bolt or anybody else who was blazing the hell out of everybody. They would never ask him or ask him to suppress his hormone levels so that people can catch up to him. No, go put the work in and shut the hell up.
What are some other examples where misogyny is still the rule of today? I wasn't aware of that one. Thanks for bringing that one to my awareness. But what are some of the other things that where misogyny is rule of the day? Because I don't think that I necessarily, and I'm speaking for Joe Blow, the general public, I don't think Joe and Jane public, I tell you what, I don't think the public normally sees some of the things you guys are picking out unless conscious brothers like yourselves bring it to our awareness. So what are some other examples, Danny?
Well, I was going to say, I know, again, misogyny is hatred and violence towards women. A good example is how we police women's bodies, right? So, and I remember we were having a discussion about, prom dresses, right? Here's an example of prom dresses, right? And I noticed that when people post pictures of their daughters, and two things, right? They'll post pictures of their daughters, and everybody has something to comment about the dresses she's wearing, right? But that's nothing. We never do that towards the boys, or the males, right? But we're always policing women's bodies. Oh, why are you letting her dress like that? Why is she dressing like that? We start sexualizing their bodies early, and that's misogyny. That is clearly misogyny. Or on the reverse side of that, you have pictures of dads posting pictures of their daughters, and then with their date, and the men have shotguns, or machine guns. And it's like, again, policing their daughters' bodies. They're doing it again, even though we don't look at it, we look at it as good parenting, we're actually policing women's bodies. That's a form of control of violence, over women's bodies, not letting them have agency over their own bodies. So that's something that we do all the time. I see it happen every year online. People make comments at the water cooler at work. We might say, oh, did you see so-and-so's daughter? She looked like a little thot. And this is like, why are you sexualizing her? She's going to the prom. Like, why are you doing that? It blows my mind,
Having dealt with way too many prom seasons. This is what year? I'm going into year 25 as an educator. Having been through way too many proms, now there are some things that are just, first of all, and it's not even, I guess for me, looking at it as an educator and as a parent, it's not more so policing. It's just like some shit just ain't appropriate. Girl, you cannot go into this particular occasion. And I think it's a lack of us telling, it's not so much policing, but it's some things are just not in good taste. Some things. So at a high school prom, I had a young lady come in with a plastic dress on. She had this wonderful.
Yeah, and I can see that. I can see that. I can say, hey, for so many reasons.
Well, right? You saying that she came with a hefty on?
No. A clear.
I hope she was skinny.
No. Very shapely. She had on pasties. And a thong under said see-through dress. And so she had this cape that was, circa, reminiscent of Kathleen Battle with the hood. And it was very.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So she's walking through, and it's real cute. Like, okay, you're like, what's under the cape? And she's like, come here. And she's going in the bathroom, and she's the flashing, and we're like, oh, honey, you have to keep the cape on. You have to keep, or it's so funny. I remember my first year teaching, the guidance counselor's husband, he was standing out there with me. He was pointing out the LPCs. What's an LPC? A little pussy cover. What?
Oh, wow.
Sir, I was like, sir. But and then when you get to a middle school level and they have this little dance, baby, you should not look like, then it's not even about, sexualizing, but what you don't, what you allow your child to wear, some things are not age appropriate. I do not want to see my daughter out there looking like she's about to go on a stroll.
Now, are you taking away her agency?
No, you know what? Well, let me tell you something. There was one time I did say to Charmaine, I said, sweetie, we were going to, she was slightly busty.
And you're talking about your daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when she was on her way out, we were on our way to King's Dominion, and on our way to meet the folks, she had on this real small shirt. And I said, go back in and change. And she looked at me, I said, no. I said, let me tell you why. I said, I have on a small shirt because I go to the gym every damn day and I want people to look. And so but the deal is, I'm not going to get upset when people look. When the wrong person looks, I'm not going to get upset about it. I'm just going to be like, oh, well, too bad. I said, however, you are going to make this day harder for me, because when the wrong little boy looks at your breasts, which are now on full display, guess what? You're going to come to me and you want me to then police them looking at you. No. So
but then shouldn't we? And I'm not saying you. I have 3 sons. I have 1 daughter and 3 sons. Shouldn't me as a parent tell my sons that, hey, just because you see a young woman with her stuff out doesn't mean you can say stuff out your mouth. Doesn't mean that you could, touch her without consent.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean that you could, whatever. And I think, and that's what I mean. Like that's where I mean. Like we need to tell our young boys, hey, just because she's dressed like that doesn't mean that you have the right to say or do what you want. And men too, and young men, and men our age, So we need to do that as well.
And you're right. That's the other half of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And so what you say, and so the conversation with my sons is, what you're not going to do is right here. And no, and even with students, like, you don't have the right. I don't care if she, is her name. If she's coming out here like Tatiana, that's her business. However, you don't have the right, sir, to say to her, you don't have the right to touch her. You don't have the right to say anything inappropriate to her. That's a whole nother conversation. And so, that's not how you do that. I mean, it's about being respectful and, and teaching them to be respectful. And so it still exists. You're right. Women having agency, but I'm just like, that I call it that lack of, even with agency, there's a whole level of home training.
Oh, I agree. I agree 100%. Because ultimately I'm the parent, I'm the one that buys the outfit. So, and so when I see them like that in middle school, because I taught middle school, I was like, well, I know mom and dad bought that. Why they let, I need to talk to them. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Well, you know what? We have 4 minutes left. What are some other examples? And I appreciate you telling us about the Tatiana in the hefty dress. That's I'm just glad she wasn't a hefty in a hefty. But what are some other examples? So, because one of the things that happens is people are, listening to our conversation and starting to say, maybe I am continuing this construct, which is destructive. And we may have been totally unaware of it. So what's another example? But, I am telling my daughter what to wear up until she's a certain age. And now I got to start thinking, am I forcing her because I'm dealing with misogyny and, male proof? That's interesting. It's making me think and maybe even become a better father because of it. So I want to help fathers and mothers become better parents. What's another example so we can go?
I think kind of like what I jumped off of what Ed said. What we tell our daughters is usually different from what we tell our sons, right?
Didn't it be?
So a good example, like for example, I'm not saying that you do it, Seko, or you do it. I've been around Seko, so I know how he gets down. But I see like a lot of parents, like if their son is 14, 15 years old and he's dating a lot of girls, will be like, hey, big pimping, that's my son, you know what I mean? He's holding it down. But if our daughters are dating a lot of men, we have an issue with it. And I think that, if we're gonna do it, it should go down both sides, male and female. If I have a son and a daughter, I should do it the same way. Or if I'm gonna do the opposite, I need to treat them the same way. It needs to be some equality in that situation. So and that goes back to agency over their bodies. And a lot of it is, we're saying, and I try to be real careful because I don't want my daughter or my lady mentees or my lady students I don't want them to see me say that you're only thing that you are is your body. You're more than just that, right? So I really try to not keep the conversations on those levels, right? I always want to say, they're intelligent, and I don't want to sound like I'm being respectability policies here, but that you're more than just your body. And I think a lot of times when we do these things, we kind of emphasize that everything is about your body, and we should move away from that because we don't do that with our sons at all.
So I think this is a conversation that really needs to be continued. Last words, Ed. Last words.
peace, love, and hair grease, and no confetti bags at damn prom.
It is prom season, so it's about to. It's
no Hostro Couture.
Well, as a DJ who's been DJing proms for the last 20 years, no matter what your child puts on, they're fighting it out when they get out there. DanTres, where should we go with this information, bro?
I'm gonna say this. I'm just like Kevin Powell says. I am a recovering misogynist, right? I'm still learning, my behaviors and what I say. I really pay attention to what I say, and a lot of times I fail at that. And a lot of times I do promote misogyny and I do promote sexism. So I have to consistently recognize that at all times, especially dealing with my students and my kids, that I'm a recovering misogynist. So that's how I look at it, and that's how I try to make all the spaces that I enter safe for almost as many people as possible.
Oh, I think that's the guiding light right there. Try to make everything we experience safer for those who are going to experience it with us. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, hey, stay fly, gentlemen. I know you had something to say, Ed. Go ahead. 15 seconds. 15 seconds.
Really, next week, we need to talk about safe spaces, because the kid that committed